Hello, gamers, and welcome to the Wildcard Week here at the VML, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and Good Luck High Five. We've been here for 7 weeks that these players have played in round robin style between all of our competitors, and those not fully locked sit with a dubious toehold and a chance at the top 32. We will be seeing who finds their names among those top 32 tonight, and bringing you through that will be myself, Beky Bear, and walking me through these matches as well as all of you at home is going to be a Kuro. Long time no see, Kuro.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. I don't think we casted in such a really long time. I'm looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, I've been away for some time, have like kind of stepped away from magic and like a lot of other things, dealing with some personal stuff. But when Nicole so nicely reached out and was like, actually it was Mission Me Go, but then I was very excited to talk to Nicole too. Excited to talk to everyone at the VML. I feel bad that I've been like so far away from all of you for so long, but it was really great to have so many people reach out and be like, would you kindly be here for tonight? And I was like, anything for you guys. Let's go. I'm in VML. Here we go. Let's see who's going to be making it into that top 32. Why don't we? And to start with that, should we maybe take a look at some metagame if we have that?
Let's look at some metagame if we have that. Wow, look, there it is. We do
We
have
have it. Let's go.
it.
All right, Kuro. So you're the one who knows a lot about this format right now. So walk me through this. Explain it to me like I haven't played Magic in 6 months, which definitely is only mostly true.
Yes, of course. Well, it looks like our top three decks this time around. It isn't fair to say top three decks because there's a top deck, a most common deck, Temur Analyst, a combo deck that uses Aftermath Analyst to return all your lands to the battlefield using Nissa to grab some landfall triggers and make mana. This deck is very reliable because you can gain life with the lands, you can get a lot of mana, and basically combo off, and your combo feeds into itself. It's very nice against aggro, and it can be very resilient versus control. We have a bunch of lists that have three ofs: blue white control, Boros, Convoke, and aggro deck. Four color legends. It's just a good value deck using Plaza of Heroes as a good mana engine. Five color legends, same deal, just one more color. And Gruul aggro, an interesting strategy that we've seen a little bit of in the past, where you have really good value red green creatures along with some potential ramp stuff going on. This meta that we have here looks like people are taking advantage of the sheer value that's currently in standard. Every single deck is taking advantage of every single card that exists and pushing it to its absolute limit. The format is definitely going to defined by cards that feed into each other, as well as cards that just simply do everything for you. We'll be seeing a lot of that tonight, I think.
I'm excited to see some of that, especially considering taking a peek at some of these decks, reacquainting myself with the standard metagame, getting ready for tonight. I was excited to see just how many cards from like even a year ago are still kind of finding themselves in circulation. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to be so fish out of water as I thought that I was going to be. And as we're going into that tonight, one thing that I feel like never leaves Magic, no matter how much I wish it would, is Azorius Control. And I know that that was a deck that you're very excited to watch people play tonight.
Yeah, it's actually very almost borderline offensive to me that you would imply that such a strategy like Azorius Control is somehow bad for the format. Realistically, Azorius Control has always fit that specific niche in the format to sort of check really
Yes.
powerful like go wide decks because white generally has the best board wipes and removal with a little downside, and blue generally has the best draw spells and counter spells, of course, allowing you to deal with something before it even enters the battlefield. Yeah, I love blue
Now,
white
Kuro.
control. Can you tell?
Yeah. And I have to defend myself. I never implied that it was bad for the format.
Oh,
I
okay, okay,
merely
okay.
implied that at times I don't love that it's in a format.
This is actually fair. This is fair.
I
I
think that
will.
there is always going to be like that triangle that like needs to exist in Magic for that perfect checking at all angles, and there's always going to end up being, I mean, there should always end up being some controlled deck that is going to make sure that we stay in that balanced area.
Absolutely.
And so if you weren't going to name Azorius Control, what would be the next deck that you're the most excited to see tonight?
I just love Temur Analyst as a combo deck. I think it's the most interesting combo deck I've seen in a while. And it's in standard, we've had other things like turns, and people didn't generally like that. And combo decks can feel that way sometimes when your opponent's just playing solitaire a little bit. But Temur Analyst is very interesting because it really pushes the resource management in the game to its fullest extent.
All right. Well, that is going to be one of the matches that we're going to see tonight. Not this first one, so I look forward to seeing it. But we are going to be starting off with a deck that you're excited to see in the form of Azorius Control. But first, we're going to take a look at Josh, who will be playing on the opposing side of the Azorius Control deck in the form of Gruul Aggro. Where does this deck shine aside from being aggressive?
Well, it takes in all the best parts about Mono Red. You have Monastery Swiss Spear, you have Kumano Faces Kakazan, you have Slick Shot Show Off, a card that's even been seeing play in Modern. You have all the best burn spells, play with Fire, Lightning Strike, but you're splashing green for Questing Druid, a very nice 2 mana threat that gets one counter every time you play a red spell. Turns out most of the cards in this deck are red. You're also playing some Snakeskin Veils and even an Audacity and Giant Growth just to push in a little extra damage and to make sure that you don't just automatically die to removal. I think this is actually a really strong deck against the blue white control deck it's playing against because it's going to get under the skin pretty easily. I think every single creature has haste except for Questing Druid and Cemetery Gatekeeper, of course. And there's a lot of pump stuff here that's going to be very nice for all of these triggered abilities that are going to be benefiting from that.
All right. Well, let's see the exact Azorius control list that this Gruul aggro deck is going to have to try and force its way through here. Just a moment. Yeah, let's not get into it too hastily here. So, since you mentioned that this is something that the Gruul deck would normally be a little bit favored in, what is Josie added to this deck to kind of help maybe make it a little easier to beat something like the aggro decks that are so popular in the format right now?
Well, I like the main deck temporary lockdowns. I think those are really nice against aggro, and they're an absolutely phenomenal choice against this Gruul deck. Everything in this Gruul deck costs 2 mana or less. Every single permanent. I'm going to emphasize this. Every single non-land permanent in this Gruul deck costs 2 mana or less, uh, except for Urvas Forge in the sideboard, but whatever. So temporary lockdown is really good here. It kills everything. March of Otherworldly Light is also very clutch because it's the one. It's basically a 1 mana removal spell. um, these creatures are interesting. The Novice Inspector, interesting choice. We'll see how good it is because I don't know if blocking is going to be particularly nice. But we have some No More Lies and 3 Steps Ahead. We got some counter spells. Counter spells are historically not that great against aggro, so we'll see how they fare here. But we have Wandering Emperors, we have temporary lockdowns, you have marches, and yeah, you have some good pieces here. It's going to depend on what the opening hand says, I think.
All right. Well, let's get into it and see if the opening hands are going to be nice to Josie and allow for her to get under this aggro deck here. All right. Compare these lands for me. That Novice Inspector is there. We do also have that fast land in the form of the Seachrome Coast that'll hopefully allow for Josie to at least get onto the board, but not having a ton of lands aside from those first two, usually that can spell disaster for a control deck.
Yeah, Josie needs to get the third and fourth land for that Wandering Emperor. If Josie's stuck on 2 the whole game, it's going to be really bad. Josh is coming out the gate swinging and can theoretically hit for. Oh, this is a lot of damage coming in. Um, this Inspector is never going to be able to block this Swiss Spear, unfortunately, just because of how it's just never going to be big enough to brick it.
Yeah, are you ever just like, I mean, if there is going to be a lot of damage coming across the board, do you ever just say, all right, I'm just going to wait until this can soak up as much damage as possible?
Yeah, you can definitely try. Here it's nice for sure because it stems 1 damage, but Josie's not worried about 1 damage. Josie is worried about the explosive turn where Josh plays 3 to 4 pump spells and is able to just absolutely get there against Josie. So Josie's gonna be holding up this get lost for sure to try to get under Josh's skin. Gonna try to get that slick shot show off to die after Josh casts their spells. Because if Josh casts the spell, it's still going to pump the creature. But it doesn't matter how pumped the creature is if it dies. So we'll have to see how this goes.
All right. Well, starting off on Josh's turn with a play with fire to make sure that that scry goes off before the draw step. Goes ahead with the Thran portal as well. Gonna use this ancestral anger and continue to use these pump spells to try and get the most out of this combat phase. All right, what do you think this is kind of televising to Josie? Did draw an island on her turn, so she's looking at least a little bit safer than I maybe would have felt had that not been something that came to pass. But is this a place where you're trying to uh, continue to draw to get that fourth land for that Wandering Emperor, as you mentioned, or maybe is there ever a world where you're going to counter any of these things?
Unfortunately, all the cards that Josh has right now are cards that Josie doesn't really want to counter because Josh has already resolved the major threats. The Swift Spear and the Show Off really only care that the spells are cast, not that they resolve. So if Josie prevents 2 damage with a No More Lies, big whoop. Josh is still hitting with 3 extra prowess damage with the creatures. That show off needed to be countered on turn 2, but unfortunately, because Josh went first, the No More Lies wasn't able to do that. So Josie now has to use the Get Lost instead and figure out what to do. Josh is playing this very nicely because Josh is spreading the damage across both of their creatures. If they push everything onto the Slickshot show off, Josie can get a lot more value by Get Losting it, and that takes away damage. So Josh is thinking, if Josie has removal for the show off, I want to make sure that everything is on this Monastery Swift Spear so that I don't have to worry too much if I spend too many resources.
Right. And as you mentioned that, it looks like that final pump spell is going to be the thing that causes Josie to go ahead and use that get lost. Still goes to 9 damage, but still has this Novice Inspector, a third land drawn, and a fourth in hand. So that is going to be nice, at least as far as that Wandering Emperor is concerned, but we'll see if that's going to end up being potentially too late, but at least this No More Lies is going to stop that questing druid from being too annoying for Josie.
This is close to game winning. If Josie's not careful, Josh can just win on their turn. But it's going to depend. Yeah. So this Wandering Emperor's main is really clutch because if Josh has a single burn spell in their hand, Josie just dies. Unfortunately, if Josh draws any creature, Josie also just dies here. Oh, well, there you
All
go.
right. Well, there is a creature and one with a prowess and haste. This ancestral anger powered up 3 times is going to allow for quite the attack with a trample from Josh's side to Josie's side. The good game comes out, and we will be going to game number 2 between these two players. Let's take a look at the sideboarding. Now, you already mentioned that this is going to be a deck where Gruul has the upper hand. What do you think? I mean, we're seeing those Urbrask Forges come in real quick, and that card is certainly a house if unanswered.
Absolutely. If blue white controller sides out their counter magic, Urbat's Forge is great because you don't have to worry about wandering emperors anymore. The token comes back every single turn and it gets slightly bigger every time. It has haste, it has trample, so you're getting in every single turn. There's an argument to be made about the Cemetery Gatekeeper as well. If you were to exile, say, an instant from somebody's graveyard, it punishes the blue white control deck for playing counterspells, removal, and all their other shenanigans. If you exile sorcery, it says, okay, you want to board wipe my board? You have to deal, you got to take 2 damage.
All right. And on the Azorius control side, we see that other temporary lockdown coming in, as well as a few more things. Maybe going to change up some of these counter spells and get something that's a little more efficient against the spells the Gruul deck has to offer. Get rid of some of those more clunky high end spells. I feel a little bit odd about this to populate coming out, but I want to know what's going through your head, Kuro.
I think that Depopulate coming out is an interesting choice. I would actually be really tempted to get rid of the No More Lies. When you're playing against a Gruul deck like this, you have to be as efficient as possible. And a 2 mana counterspell is not always going to get you there. Where when you could be just paying 1 mana for March or 3 mana for Lockdown. The Depopulate isn't bad here because every creature in Josh's in in Josh's deck is monocolored, so there's no extra draw that's going to happen there. The Tidebinder is also not a bad choice actually because it counters the activity. Oh no, I guess it dies to removal. Never mind. Just kidding. That's removal. That's the argument.
Dies to removal. That's the argument. That's all there is. All right, Josie's opening hand. 3 lands. Unfortunately, no blue mana, though, and at least 2 blue spells. But that temporary lockdown is castable, and that is one of the best spells for Josie against this deck. So ultimately, where would you stand with this hand?
Normally, I'd be really happy to see a lockdown here. However, Josh has 2 slickshot show-offs, and those can just be plotted. So if Josh plots both, anticipating a lockdown, Josh can later just cast them both for free and then play all of their pump spells afterwards, not worrying about a lockdown. They can theoretically try to go for an instant win. If Josh were to say, play both show-offs and then Monstrous Rage and then Snakeskin Veil, that would be 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 damage in one single turn. So if Josh is allowed to get those show offs down, it's going to be really good. And this
Ooh.
mulligan on Josie, I think, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and this is the second mulligan as well. So going down to 5 cards for Josie here does go into another hand with a temporary lockdown, and this time with some blue mana as well.
Yeah, I would be tempted to get rid of the No More Lies. Wandering Emperor is probably not something I'd get rid of, especially on the play. It's unfortunate that that's the choice here. Adderker Waste is also very risky to keep because it's damage, and Josh is trying to eke as much damage as humanly possible.
Mhm.
Um, I guess Josie is prioritizing answers for early creatures right now, which is completely fair, by the way, because Josh's deck is extremely oppressive if unanswered.
Yeah, this is just like you were kind of talking about it. One of the like kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't moments where you can't really get yourself into a position where you can counter a 1 mana creature on turn 1. And
Right.
sometimes that 1 mana creature on turn 1 is all the aggro deck needs to just like start humming.
Yeah, the best thing about plot here is that if you're anticipating that Josie has a counterspell, all you have to do is just go, okay, I'm not going to cast anything. I'll just save it for later. And then if Josie tries to normalize it next turn, well, Josh has 3 mana to pay. So the card advantage is lost there.
Yeah, making that a really cool interaction is going to follow it up with that March of Otherworldly Light and make sure that that Monastery Swiftspear is not going to stay on the board. Unfortunately, with no lands, 2 Novice Inspectors, but a No More Lies in hand, does mean that it's just going to be another turn where Josie doesn't play a land. Well, the first turn where Josie doesn't play a land says pass, draws a Wandering Emperor instead of a land, and really just is kind of locked out of playing these inspectors despite wanting something on the field that's going to get us a little bit closer to a land. You are also trying to hold something up and hoping that you can make this counterspell work. But on the other side of the board, you mentioned it, Josh is just plodding away.
Yeah, I'm trying to calculate exactly how much damage this is if Josh is able to resolve every single card in their hand. And so it's 3 plus 6 3 times, plus the 3 from Monstrous Rage, plus the 1 from Snakeskin Veil, plus the 2 with Play with Fire. That's 27 damage if none of this is answered. Shot show-offs come down, but unfortunately, Monstrous Rage plus Snakeskin Veil is, let's see, 2, 6 is minus 8 is 19 damage. Josh is able to win the game right now. Um, Unfortunately, they didn't cast the Snakeskin Veil, so oh no.
All right. Well, here's a moment that's going to make it seem a little bit terrifying. That temporary lockdown that Josie Mulligan to be able to cast reliably along with some counter spells is going to catch all of those birds right into that cage. Luckily though, Josh prepared, held on to the Beseju, and is going to go ahead and get all those birds with haste right back.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing up here is that this Boseiju is really clutch. Um, I believe there's only one. Yeah, there's one in the entire deck, so that was just really nice to have. And unfortunately, Josie has no counterplay for this. Um, every spell Josh casts is 6 extra damage because of the show-off triggers,
I was
which
gonna
is
say
insane.
also, as somebody who's a fan of Azorius Control, how maddening are the channel lands to you?
I think the channel lids are actually completely fine. Visage is not usually a huge issue. I just think that it's really unfortunate to not have, say, like knockout blows in the sideboard for
Mm.
stuff like this. Being able to do something after they cast pump spells and say, okay, I'm going to kill your guy and I'm going to gain 2 life, which is kind of nice. It's sort of like a budget wandering emperor almost. That didn't happen. And Boseiju, it's hard to play around it because it's a one of, and you are playing it. If you're in green, you're playing one just in case. Andrew's
At
untapped if you don't use
least.
it, and it's just good. It's just good.
Absolutely. Well, that does mean that Josh was able to take that one down. The Gruul strategy is going smashing right through Azorius control to start off our night. Very strong. I mean, you mentioned it. It's like one of those really difficult matchups. You're just trying to make sure that you have the best hand possible. You said the opening hands were going to be something that mattered, and we really saw that happen there.
Yeah, I think it was unfortunate that a large number of the cards that were in Josie's hand were just never be able to be used because she didn't draw the lands or they just weren't helpful. Like the Novice Inspector against a different deck maybe would have been more helpful. But against this one specifically, the 2 toughness doesn't matter that much because everything has tramples. So you're not really saving much damage, and you don't have time to pay 2 to deduce or to pay 2 on a clue to draw a card. It's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's another one of those places, like, I feel like those novice inspectors, when I was getting ready, to be here tonight, I was kinda, like, looking up the metagame and looked at, like, kind of a general metagame before even looking at, the VML's, wildcard metagame in particular, and, like, top deck was mono red, and then I went and saw Josie's deck, and I was like, "Oh, no, the novice inspectors, like, kinda make sense. You're just trying to have, like, some blockers, trying to live for a little bit longer." And then now seeing especially this Gruul variant where it is so trample and even flying based, weirdly enough, for a Gruul deck. Uh,
Yeah.
it it's kind of sad to see Thraben Inspector basically falling from grace in my eyes, but it's kind of cool also to see that these decks are evolving in such a different way that are also things that I wouldn't have expected to see over the years, but still pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. And it's a good Wandering Emperor bait anyway. So if you want to put counters on it to give first strike or something, that's always a choice you have. So I think there's multiple reasons to play it in the deck. Personally, I don't, but then, this isn't about me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's also hard in the wild card rounds because you're trying to hedge as much as possible for like what you expect other people to
Yes.
play. And sometimes like you can kind of end up baiting yourself. You can be like, okay, this person has played these decks for so many weeks, and you can expect that to happen. And they could completely switch it on you randomly, and you'd just be like, oh, well, maybe I planned for the wrong thing.
Yeah, that, lemons, that.
Exactly. Well, congratulations to Josh, who is going to be the first player of our night making it into that top 32. Let's go down into match number 2, take a peek at the decks that we're going to be looking at next here. Talia starting us off here. More aggro with this Boros Convoke deck.
Yeah, so we got some really interesting. I mean, this is a standard Boros Convoke deck. You have basically every piece that you would normally have. Interesting choice. Not that many Yoshin Inspector or frontliners. Um, Really strong card because it's an artifact that you can sack to the Gleeful Demolition. It's basically a 2/2 for 1 mana in terms of the stats that it adds to your attack. But yeah, we're not seeing too much of those. It's just a standard red white. Make tokens, make creatures, make them all bigger, give them battle cry, give them +1, war leader's call, kill your opponent, win the game.
Yeah, and I love seeing this moment where we were just talking about how you can look at what your opponent has been playing kind of all season. And I love that Talia says in the second question, I'm aware that Sophie metagames, I've been playing control, so I figured switch it up. Let's hard pivot and brought this Boros Convoke deck. And let's take a look at what Talia is going to be going up against here in the form of this domain ramp deck. Now, Domain Ramp is one of my favorite decks. I'm a little bit of a ramp lover. It's its own form of control.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have some really, really strong cards like Up the Beanstalk, Archangel of Wrath, Leyline Binding, Sunfall, the best whiteboard wipe I've seen in a really long time. Herd Migration to gain you life and get you lands, Topiary Stomper to get you to 5. Not that many invasions of Zendikars, actually. Usually I see a lot more, but I guess this one only has 4. I mean, this one only has 1, sorry. Uh, Yeah, it's again, it's sort of a classic list. A good old 27 lands, get them on the battlefield. The thing I'm worried about a little bit here is the fact that there isn't that much early game for this deck. There's one get loss. There's some leyline bindings, but it does require you to draw exactly the right tri lands to get it done turn two. There's only four of those. So, and Archangel's 5 to 6 mana to cast, Sunfall's 5 mana to cast. I feel like kind of stacked. It's kind of stacked in Talia's favor here, just a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
gonna, I'm, I think Sophie's gonna have a hard time dealing with the early game.
yeah, and Sophie, I think, also potentially anticipated for Talia to be bringing something a little more controlling rather than this Boros Convoke deck. But luckily for Sophie, you do play more sideboarded games than mainboard games. At least that's what a very good Magic player once told me. So let's get down into this match and see if we're going to see those sideboard games really come in strong, or maybe we'll get a really big shakeup in this first one.
That first hand seemed okay. The second hand is really rough, though. 1 mana. The good news, though, is that since Talia is playing an aggro deck, having 1 mana isn't that bad. If Sophie had a hand with 1 land, oh my gosh, they would be absolutely shafted. There's nothing they can do. But Talia can just go, okay, I'm going to play, I'm just going to say, here, a 1 mana creature. And here, a 1 mana creature.
And you liked it so much the first time, hey, another one mana creature.
Hey, has this ever happened to you? I don't have enough 1 mana creatures. Well, look no further. This
A
deck is
one
for
mana
you.
creature.
Yeah. Faye even have the Gleeful Demolition in the hand. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in love with the card Gleeful Demolition. And I loved seeing kind of all the fun things that people have gotten to do with that card, because it's one of those cards that you like see during spoiler season and you're like, I know that someone who is much more innovative than me is going to come up with something really cool to do with this card. It's not going to be me, but I'm so excited to see it happen. And so seeing things like this Boros Convoke deck come out of Gleeful Demolition existing as a card just kind of makes me so happy. All right, up the beanstalk coming in, going to be followed by a Triumph for Sophie. We do just have this Inspector for now, but it's about to be joined. Post some gleefully demolitioning. War Leader's Call, going to do a little bit of extra damage, and why not? You know, we said we
It's
liked one mana
lethal.
creature, but it's
It's
gleeful. We're so
lethal.
happy. Oh, it's lethal?
The, the game
I
is
thought you were saying
over.
it's I thought you were saying it's gleeful, and I was like,
No,
it
it's
is. I'm
lethal.
so
That's it.
happy.
That's it. The leyline binding being used on the warden was an unfortunate choice because using it on the artifact in response to the lethal demolition would have probably helped a lot more, or at the very least, killing the war leader's call. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. So here we are, game two, in
And that's what I
record time.
call a gleeful lethal.
A gleeful lethal. Okay, all right. I'm leaving the stream
I feel
just for
like
that.
that's a joke that you would make though. I thought you would be proud of me.
It absolutely is, which is why I'm leaving because you're taking
Oh,
my job. I can't
oh,
have
I'm so
that.
sorry.
I can't
Okay,
have
okay.
that. You're taking my job away from me. What am I
I'm
supposed to
so
do?
sorry.
Come up with
I'm
bad
so
puns?
sorry. All right, this time around, Sophie on the play here, and so we'll see if that is going to be enough to keep Sophie in a little bit of a better position against the aggression that we just saw on turn 3. I mean, not to be that person who stops playing Magic for a few months and then is like back in my day, but I guess I've been in a few standard formats where turn 3 lethals certainly were possible, but still feels a little bit scary to see.
I mean, Faye has some Achilles heels, right? If you
Mhm.
kill Fair's artifacts before the Gleeful Demolition resolves, that's actually a really, really, really strong play there. Because Faye can't just do that. So if there were potentially a removal spell for this token, that would be really strong. Unfortunately, Sophie's decided I'm going to give you even more artifact tokens to potentially blow up in the future.
So
Um,
then I have to ask, is this a place where you think that like Get Lost is not as good against a deck like this because it does give more artifacts to the Gleeful Demolition deck?
I think targeting the Voldaren Epicure is an interesting choice, and I wouldn't recommend it because they're far better targets. You can target the Knight Errant if it's you just want a big 4/4 out of the way. You can target the oh my gosh, you can target the Warden because that's a
Hmm.
big flyer that'll get you. You can even target the War Leader's Call if that's what you need to do because of the simple fact that you just need to get that enchantment out of there. In fact, Get Lost is one of the only main deck ways Sophie has to deal with the Warden's Call.
Mhm.
Um, this Knight Errant's going to go completely crazy because that's a second Imodane's Recruiter.
Yep, and that recruiter and another resolute reinforcements going into hand. Leyline binding is going to come down, get rid of that knight errant, but a lot of creatures still in play here for Talia. What is kind of the ideal for Sophie to have here? I mean, ideally, I feel like a board wipe, but I'm
Yeah,
not certain that that something would be here.
temporary lockdown would be the best, absolute best thing that Sophie could slam at this moment. Kills all the tokens, kills the resolute reinforcements. Uh, Talia would then have to play something else and try to bash in that way. Oh, this is just a blocker. That's unfortunate.
But it's a life linking blocker.
It's a 3/4, so it gets killed by Destroy Evil. So
Oh no.
yeah,
Okay, and it's kind of fitting because I feel like the angel that's on Destroy Evil kind of looks like the angel on Archangel of Wrath.
yeah, for sure. This Resolute Reinforcements is really, really nice because Sophie untaps and slams like a Sunfall. Then Talia goes, okay, here's a reinforcements, and then I'm going to cast Recruiter, and we're going to hit you for 7 and take you down to 4. I think that's what Talia is thinking right now. Oh no.
Ooh, tap land, not what you want to see when you're trying to wipe the board. And so it is going to be Talia taking that one. So far, we're 2-0 for these aggro decks. How does that make you feel as a control
Well,
player?
I think that is, I think thinking about the first 3 turns, first 4 turns of your game is a really important thing. And sometimes you just can't play around the aggro decks. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to stuff your sideboard full of the anti-aggro cards. You know, saving your removal for a good thing. Like in the first game, spending a leyline binding on a creature instead of the artifact potentially cutting off a gleeful demolition. Uh, Little choices like that in the first 4 turns you need to take those very seriously, I think. You can't just kill the first threat that comes down. Believe it or not, Warden of the Eye is actually not as good as people think it is. It's good. It's very good when you like want to bash in, but you're tapping everything else to do so. So you're not actually attacking with those creatures. So if you just after they tap a bunch of stuff, make it a 4/5 or whatever, bash in, you can kill it. But that's later. You're worried about the large number of creatures because there's so many anthem effects in red white tokens. You need to deal with those. You either need to prevent them from getting tokens or prevent the anthem effects from resolving. That's why Recruiter is so good. It has haste. That's why War Leader's Call is so amazing because it basically gives your creatures extra haste because they get an extra damage off. So it's really a +2 situation. There's just a lot to work with. Single removal doesn't really cut it there, but you need to sort of hit them with pinpoint accuracy.
Fair enough. Well, we might be done with aggressive decks for the evening, but we are not done with the control decks. Let's continue this night rolling and go into our third match of the evening, where we will be watching World Waker rockin' Azorius control once again, this time with 4 Novice Inspectors main board.
These novice inspectors are getting everywhere. I think I think it's a fine card. I like it. It's just it's just yeah. So we got some dust animuses here. A very, very good win condition for the control deck actually. If you plot it on turn 2 and you play it on turn 5, it comes down as a 4/5 flying lifelink. Those stats are really hard to work with. It doesn't die to red damage, it doesn't die to cut downs, and you play it for free essentially. So when it lands, you have mana up for counter spells. You have a Normalize, a Negate, 3 steps ahead, all that sort of fun stuff. You got your classic blue-white control elements. You got Get Lost. Uh, I like the Denix too. Denix is a very nice anti-aggro card here.
Mm.
2/3, good defensive body, so it's hard to kill. Has lifelink, so if your opponent isn't attacking, you can attack them to gain some life. Um, I like this.
Wow,
There's
Denik is a good
27
card.
lands. Good number, 27. That's lucky.
I was gonna say, yeah, as a ramp player, also like 27, sometimes even more lands. I don't know. It depends on how I'm feeling. Um, I am also like slowly reading through the questions. I usually am always gravitating towards like, why did you choose a deck? Especially because I feel like that usually leads for more things to talk about. But I'm now like kind of gravitating towards the what cards are we happy to say goodbye to with standards and pending rotation, and seeing that it's the Wandering Emperor was named for World Waker here. Yeah, I think I'm about ready for that card to stop being kind of a little bit of a menace, I would say. Is that how do you feel about would that card be leaving make it really difficult to play Azorius control? Is that a card that you're also excited to see leave?
Well, Wandering Emperor is probably the best white win condition we've had in a really long time, for control especially. It does everything you want it to do. It makes creatures, it makes them a little bit bigger. It's a good combat trick, and it kills their best guy, your opponent's best guy, whenever when they least expect it usually. Um, and they can't even attack it, so you're basically guaranteed to get two pings. I don't know what's going to fill the void there. I think it's
Hmm.
possible Dust Animus might fill the void there, but
Ooh.
there's no other card that I can think of that cleanly fits the slot that Wandering Emperor does without costing a lot more mana. Like the Eternal
Mhm.
Wanderer is sorcerer speed; it costs 6. It doesn't do the same thing anyway. It's just I don't know. It's really hard to fill that void.
All right. Well, we'll see as spoilers start to come out for Dusk War if something is going to fill that void. In the meantime, taking a peek at Kira's deck here and Esper Midrange. Now, I feel like we always see either like Esper or Temur or these kind of like mid-range plus blue decks kind of be the mid-range answer to control decks. How in particular do you feel about this one and how it is built to beat something like a control deck?
Well, you have a lot of really interesting cards here. A lot of things have flying, which don't really matter much, but it does matter in the sense that they can't be blocked by Novice Inspector, which is nice. Fairy Mastermind has Flash, so if your opponent's playing control and they don't play anything, you can no moralize something if they play something. But if they don't cast anything, you can just cast Fairy Mastermind. Blue White Control might be drawing extra cards if they're going to be cracking clues, but generally don't. The Rafine is there's just some really good value creatures here that are difficult to deal with. Rafine's good. Shoshana's Tidebinder shuts down Wandering Emperor. Akhlazot's is classic. They're even playing their own Wandering Emperors. Like it's just good. You just have a lot of really good value here.
I did come into tonight the most afraid to have to say Akhlazot, but having you say it first so I can hear how I'm supposed to say it was very helpful. So thank you.
You're not supposed to tell everyone the trade secrets like that.
And with
No.
that, let's get down into our third match of the evening and see which one of these two blue white plus some decks is going to come out on top here. Ooh, all right. How do you feel about this hand, especially considering that World Waker is going up against something that is, oh my gosh, this horse is so cute. Wait a minute. What is this horse from?
I think it's from Outlaws, because
Right,
cowboys and
right,
such.
right. Yeah. It just looks too cute for Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
I
I
think
feel
all
like
the
it
mascots are
belongs with
cute.
like the Lord of the Rings set. It reminds me of Bill the Pony.
True. Actually, maybe it is from Lord of the Rings. It could be, theoretically.
Oh, it's so cute.
This
Wow.
hand's
Okay, I love
nice.
it.
The temp
Sorry, I
the
got so distracted. I was like a
No,
horse.
you're completely fine. The temptation is to play Restless Anchorage Night day one so that you can let it be untapped later. But it's actually better to play it turn three because there's actually nothing in World Waker's hand that costs 3 mana. So there's no
Hmm.
reason to have it. There's no reason not to have it as a tap land on turn three. However, holding up Get Lost and getting that Dust Animus to go off, those are really important things. So now this Novice Inspector is basically on the battlefield 2 turns earlier for that reason. Sequencing's pretty good so far. Kira's in the tank already. About what land does she play? Is it the one that taps for blue, or is it the one that taps for blue?
Or
Hmm.
fair enough. How about blue and black?
I think Kira is holding up a fairy mastermind here.
I would be
Um,
inclined to agree. Could potentially be no more lies as well, though.
If it is, then that's fine. If all Kira has is a normalized, Worldwicker is very happy just passing the turn because
Mhm.
Worldwicker wants to play lands and do nothing. The more, the more they do nothing, the better their deck is.
All right, next question while we're thinking about game actions. Fairy Mastermind going to come in now while we're tapped out. All right. How do you feel about that? Because the No Moralize was a draw going into this turn. So making sure that this Fairy Mastermind comes into play when there's no hope of getting it countered. Do you think that's a good call from Keira, or we could have maybe been a little more patient on Kira's side?
I think patience would have been a little bit better. I think if you're playing control, countering a fairy mastermind, especially when you're not really drawing two cards that turn, it's kind of whatever. I don't think it's that great. So I would generally play the mastermind at the end of their turn, just because you want to hold up the counterspell if you can. Like
Mhm.
Worldbreaker could have just decided, oh, I'm going to cast Memory Deluge on my turn since you tapped out for counter, so you can't counter it with no Moralize. And then
Mm.
Worldbreaker would be far ahead because they would get their resources, they get their lands, they get their removal spells, maybe another no Moralize for Kiera's threats later. Worldbreaker's in a really good position right now, but we'll have to see how that pans out because this is happening.
All right, No More Lies does stop this fairy mastermind from getting lost, at least the first time, but not the second time, presumably. We don't have Force Spike,
No.
Spell Pierce. Nope. Okay. Making sure something crazy didn't happen while I stopped playing Magic for a bit of time, you know?
There's the fifth land, so this Dust Animus is a 4/5. Woolbreaker has the No More Lies for any removal spell that Kiera might try to play on this Animus, so that's really strong. The unfortunate thing is that Woolbreaker does not have any card draw right now. The clue is gone, there's no Memory Deluge. So they're going to have a little bit of a hard time winning the card advantage battle if Kiera starts playing some good card advantage engines, such as Rafine or even another Fairy Mastermind.
Yeah, would a Rafine even still be good here facing up against this Dust Animus?
Not currently, but it would be nice to have just in general, just because it sets up for later. Warwicker's done a really good job preventing Kiera from setting up her creatures.
Mm.
Uh, she really, really wants to be able to just put creatures on the battlefield, create some pressure, make it harder for Worldbreaker to draw cards, for instance, or to, yeah, not having a deep cavern bat, for instance, was so unbelievably rough for Kiera because she could have known their hand, she could have taken the best card, which would probably would have been a counter spell. But now Worldbreaker's hitting for 5. This is a 3-turn clock.
Yeah, that's a bit punchy to be getting here. We'll see what Kira is going to have in response. Tried to get rid of that Dust Animus, but it did get stopped by another No More Lies coming from World Waker here. Has a Get Lost and that Farewell in hand, but that Farewell may be looking a little bit awkward when the creatures are on their side of the board. So it looks like this Rafine is going to be the thing that is the follow up for Kira. But as you just mentioned, this is maybe not the most ideal card to be playing onto the field right now when this Dust Animus is already the main threat.
Oh, this Iganjo is so
Oh,
nice because now it can't even be countered. So this Ravine is almost certainly dead. It's just a matter of how is Worldbreaker killing it.
Rafine, you're pretty much dead. It's just a question of how.
It is because does it get losted or does it get Iganjoed? And it gets
Mm.
Iganjoed. But this means that Worldbreaker does not have access to a seventh land, which you might think, wow, Worldbreaker has a lot of lands already. Why are we complaining that they don't have a seventh?
You always
Because
want more lands.
Memory Deluge costs 7 mana to flashback. Memory Deluge costs 4 to cast, and so if you play Memory Deluge and you draw like into a No Moralize, that's a 3 mana spell. So you need to be very conscious of how many lands you have available when playing Control, and this is no exception.
All right, Fairy Mastermind on World Waker's end step before going back to Kira's turn. 6 HP, 3 cards in hand, and sacrificing a map only to watch Get Lost target this Fairy Mastermind. With 5 damage on the field, it's looking a little bit scary, but we'll see if Wandering Emperor is here to save the day or not.
It'll kill the Dust Animus, but this Novice Inspector is able to kill the Wandering Emperor immediately since she is at 1 life or 1 loyalty now.
Yeah, that
Um,
hurts a little bit.
yeah, well, maybe. I mean, Seventh Land. Keira doesn't actually have any threats. There's 2 Field of Ruins, so those Reckless Anchorages aren't that threatening. Um, if this anchorage is allowed to get some map tokens, it's going to be really nice for World Waker because then they can use those map tokens and try to draw the lands that are on top of the library,
Mm.
maybe. And if it's not a land, getting Restless Anchorage out of Fatal Push or not Fatal Push, what? I'm confusing cards. Out of cut down range is also really
There we
important.
go.
Wow, another Dust Animus.
How nice. That
I
card
heard.
was already doing so much work before.
Well, this time it doesn't have to be plotted even because Worldbreaker has like I said, exactly 7 lands is exactly enough lands to cast Dust Animus and not and have it enter with 2 extra counters. Um, very very nice draw here coming up.
All right. Virtue of Loyalty is going to be a part of Kira's turn here. Get a knight to try to hold down the fort, though staring down the Dust Animus that's on the top of World Waker's deck has got to not feel too good, especially also knowing that following turns there's also that anchorage. I always want to say archipelago, but it's anchorage. It's so many different letters too, but my brain is just like that's a fancier word, so but Dust Animus is
There's
gonna go on stack.
there's an argument to yeah. So if the normalizes resolves and Worldbreaker pays the 3, the Dust Animus just enters as a 2/3, which is really interesting because this is a very creative use of normalize here to take away the stats off of that creature. Instead of being a 2-turn clock, it's now a 3-turn clock, and that difference is very striking.
Mhm.
Worldbreaker's thinking, do I even counter this? Because this Restless Anchorage is actually a faster clock than the Dust Animus,
Mhm.
because it comes in as a 3/4 this turn, and Keira can't kill it. And then next turn, it'll come in as a 3/4 again. If Keira tries to animate her own anchorages, then Wolverine can just say, okay, I'll Field of Ruin those, please. Thank you very much.
So it looks
Call
like
it a
that
day.
that anchorage is going to be the game plan. Start funneling a lot into these anchorages. Map gonna try and make it do a little more exploring.
Yeah, that's a cut down.
Ooh, but
That previous turn where Worldbreaker put the counter on the anchorage was so important because now that cut down can't be used on it. Kira's thinking like, how do I win? How do I not die? Kira wins. Kira avoids death by having like a Wandering Emperor to use or something.
mm,
Because if she doesn't have any removal, she's just dead. Worldbreaker attacks with the bingle with the land, um, and yeah, this Denic is nice, actually. I think it's probably the best possible thing.
yeah, it is a flyer. And you know what? This vigilant knight probably also gonna attack. Nothing. I was gonna say nothing feels better than like being low HP, but having a vigilant creature that you get to go, why not? I'll attack with it. Feels like the Hobbit meme.
Well, here's an Eternal Wander, which is going to be not supremely helpful unless Kira can somehow start drawing it back, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, starting to look at a lot of clunky spells in World Waker's hand when World Waker is just trying to activate anchorages.
Legitimately, Worldbreaker would have rather drawn like a Get Lost. Sunfall's not the worst, but they're like, nope, I have Farewell already. I don't need
Mm-hmm.
it.
I
I
have
think I
Farewell and Eternal Wanderer. I don't need another way to get rid of Kira's uh, not non-existent creatures because there's this knight, but not very many creatures.
Oh, there it is. That's game 1.
All right, World Waker working through that match. A little bit of a grindy one here, but that's kind of what we expected to see from the control versus mid-range matchup. Where do you think it really kind of turned a corner for or do you think it kind of happened from the start for the Azorius deck?
Truthfully, I think when Kiera is not putting down creatures, not putting down bats, I understand she probably didn't have any,
Mhm.
but didn't have any bats. Um, Played the fairy kind of on her turn instead of potentially trying to pretend you hold up a counterspell. Um, it seems to me that the control deck just had the edge the entire game there. Like it was every decision that was made in that game was centered around what is this control deck doing and how do I deal with it. Keira wasn't really playing stuff to be like how can I avoid the answers.
Mhm. All right. Well, we're likely not going to get a look at Kira's sideboard. So while we're watching World Waker, I'll kind of walk you through some things that I think might end up going into Kira's deck. Things like
Mm,
Hostile Investigator, Good Old
yes.
Negate, and potentially
Yes.
something like these Tashana's Tide Benders as well, if you want to add anything into that as well, Crow.
I do like the hostile investigator is very nice because it's just raw card advantage, and that's what control's going to be trying to win with. Long goodbye for those restless anchorages will be really nice because they can't be countered. Negate is a very nice counter spell, just catch all. It just works for everything. Uh, yeah. I like the Tidebender. It shuts down the anchorages. It shuts down the Emperor, but I don't know. There's a lot of removal in World Waker's deck. I wouldn't necessarily rely on that.
All right, Anchorage is going to be the start for World Waker this time, and a Triumph for Kira. Going to start off not with a bat this time, but with a Edenic 2-3 with some life link. See if we can pad that life total after getting bopped by some Dust Animuses last game.
I don't know how good Denick is here because World Waker sees that and goes, "Okay, you played a vanilla 2 power creature. That's so cool. Good for you."
It has
And that's
life
fair.
link. It's not vanilla.
Well, that's the thing. When you're playing control, lifelink is a mechanic that isn't really relevant, like at all. If your opponent's at 100 life or 200 life, if you have control over the game, you can just kill them. It'll take a lot of time. It'll take a lot of patience, but eventually you'll get there, and that's usually how
It'll
control
also
wins.
take cards in your deck, which I think is ends up being the back and forth there, but
That's true. Sometimes it gets to that. And anyone who's watched Control Mirrors knows that sometimes you get to the point of the game where it's like, all right, who's drawn more cards?
yeah, how many
And
cards are in your library? How many cards are in my library? Can we fan them out, please?
exactly. Warwick is thinking, do I play into a No More Lies here? Did Kiera keep No More Lies in her deck? Maybe.
Mm.
Oof.
Oh, Deep Cavern Bat number 2. And World Waker continues to debate using this Wandering Emperor. I mean, it's gotta seem kind of tempting, especially if this Deep Cavern Bat's about to come onto the field, but it looks like instead it's gonna be Tashana's Tidebender.
I like Tidebinder
Ooh.
here because it baits out the No More Lies when really
Mhm,
like that's not the thing that World Waker cares about. It was a little
mhm.
annoying for Kiera, but it wasn't game winning per se. This bat's going to take away the Sunfall, which is the right choice because World Waker could just untap and just slam the Sunfall. Unfortunately, this means that the Wandering Emperor is still going to get some action.
Yep, and Dust Animus the draw gonna get plotted this turn. Field of Ruin gonna be the follow-up there as well. And it does feel like while the last 2 turns were kind of really good for Kira, as you mentioned, it does feel like we're not quite going fast enough to keep up with the hand that World Waker has here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then to that effect, what is Kira gonna need to uh kind of follow these things up with, like after this Aganjo, after this Wandering Emperor, when these things are off the field and it's this basically 12 life to 28 life, what is going to be the best follow up for Kira?
I think holding up Wandering Emperor is a fine choice. I think having Rafine there actually wouldn't have been terrible because Warwicker then has to deal with
Mm.
another thing. This is hostile investigators, nice here. Unfortunately, that Sunfall is gonna be doing some shenanigans, but
Yep. Investigator comes down, but so does the sun immediately on World Waker's turn. They said, you know, it's in my hand, so let's get this over with.
yeah, Kiera was not planning on playing any creatures beyond those two because Worldwaker dies in 2 hits from those two. Ooh, okay.
That's interesting because I think the Lauren of the Third Path comes in from the sideboard. Yeah, it looks like there's one in the sideboard, none in the main of Kira's deck. So that is the only one. And this is always an interesting card because Lauren has that text that's, you and an opponent draw a card. But I feel like this is a matchup where I would anticipate my opponent's cards being better than mine, and I maybe wouldn't be using that text.
Lauren is also nice with the Fairy Mastermind. If Keira gets down
Oh,
Mastermind,
true.
Lauren is going to be able to get some value for free instead of paying 4 mana. So there's that.
All right. Worldwaker's turn was a Dust Animus and a Wandering Emperor, really starting to fortify the board here, but Go for the Throat is going to take care of the Animist. Animus? Animus, not Animist.
Oh, is it party time?
Is it
Oh
party
no.
time? No,
I,
not
I
quite.
thought it was. I thought it was for a second. Keira looked at that Lauren and was like,
Hmm?
maybe. No, it's dead. Lauren's dead.
Presumably.
I mean, I think Worldbreaker always blocks this here, tries to get it off the table,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that Keira doesn't get to keep it around so that Keira can't just keep conniving forever. It is party time! Let's go!
And Memory Deluge number 3.
Oh my
Last game, we were
God.
concerned about card advantage. In this game, it is not a worry. Now, this game, it's going to be a little more worry about the life total. But if I'm at this point as a control deck and I'm at 12 life, I'm honestly feeling very fine with the 3 Memory Deluges in my hand.
I would be tempted to just take 2 lands here and just ensure that I have land drops for the next 2 turns. Because then next turn I can have 7 mana up. Like I said earlier, 7 mana is a great number. Have 7 mana up for the exact reason that you can play Memory Delusion, have it not be countered by No More Lies. Very important thing to keep track of. This Wandering Emperor is sort of doomed to die if it's minused. So Worldbreaker's thinking, do I plus it?
Oh.
They do.
Has the Get Lost, but unfortunately, Get Lost not so good against Rafine at this point in time. But hopefully, this Wandering Emperor will be safe, at least for one more turn, so that we can start getting all of these cogs turning for Worldwaker. So the Rafine is going to come across at this Wandering Emperor, do some conniving, and then we'll see what Keira is going to continue with the rest of her turn.
Discards a No More Lies. This is very interesting. So Kira's telegraphing that she probably has another counterspell in the hand, because otherwise she wouldn't have discarded that card so easily. There's the 7th land. What's that lucky number? It's 7.
At least you named like an actually lucky number. I was about to be upset if you just like were like 6, lucky number.
Oh, my lucky number is any odd number that isn't 19.
Oh, okay.
Whenever I make decks, I always put an odd number of lands in them because superstition. I can't even explain where the superstition came from. I don't know. I put an even number of lands in it, and I was like, this isn't working. Then I took out a land, and I put in like a land, and so it's 29 lands or 27 or 25. I'm like, this works.
All right. Speaking of odd, none of the things happening right now are odd except for this Ward 1 that is going to try and counter this Get Lost. I imagine we're paying for it, and then we'll see if Keira is going to, as you mentioned, have another counterspell to try and keep this Rafine safe.
Yeah, Kira's counterspell suite is not as embellished as Worldwaker's. 3 Steps Ahead does exist. That is really, really fine, actually. But also, Worldwaker has the green light to cast those Memory Delusions with no threat of counter magic.
All right, this 3 Steps Ahead is going to make sure that this Rafine is safe. Oh, we're going to sacrifice the Anchorage to keep Wandering Emperor safe? Okay.
Maybe it's not a sacrifice. It depends on if Keira discards a land or not. It's not a land. Okay.
No, okay. I was going to say, I feel like this Wandering Emperor isn't worth as much as a land in us casting Memory Deluge.
Oh, that's a bat.
Uh-oh.
Normally this would be very exciting for Keira, but looking at Worldwaker's hand, your heart sinks. Memory Deluge, Sunfall. So
No, it's okay. This
Sunfall,
Memory Deluge is going to find us another Sunfall.
yeah,
It did
clearly.
not, but that would be the way that I would think about it, or try to think about it.
Hey, get lost.
Yeah, Get Lost, bat.
I
Or
would
Gruul.
ironically take a land here just to make sure that I have the 8th land. Because as you know, 8 lands is
Wait a minute, is it 7 or is it 8?
well, 7's sort of the critical value, but then every mana after that matters as well. Well, with 8 mana, you
The
can play
mana never
Tishana's.
stops mattering.
That's so true. For control, 100%. It's only after 10 lands that I stop thinking about it, usually.
I would maybe go so far as to say like 12.
Yeah, I can see that. I've played some control games where the difference between a win and a loss was because one single mana was either
Mm.
used incorrectly in terms of color, or a land was not played on a turn, or I should have waited a turn before doing all that. Like, No More Lies is very nice because you get to make them pay 3 mana for that turn, and it's a very temporary thing to take away from them. But in the early game, it's very nice because everything in World Waker's hand is flash, so there's no reason to actually cast anything at the moment.
All right, back to Keira's turn.
Back to reality.
Back to reality. 3/6 Rafine and this deep cavern bat facing down the 12 remaining life from World Waker, who's got 2 memory deluges in the yard. That alone, if I'm on the other side, makes me upset. I'm like, embarrassment of riches. You have 2 memory deluges you can flash back. I have to do something
I
so
have
that
to
you
do something.
so that you don't cast those. All right. And indeed, something will be done on World Waker's side. Get Lost does go through onto that Rafine, so it is nothing but this bat coming across. This anchorage is going to try and snatch it right out of the sky and get that sunfall back.
This is a risk because if Keira has a removal spell, this anchor just dead. Oh look, a removal spell. Well,
I was going to say, and one you mentioned coming in for that anchorage in particular, the long goodbye says so long to that anchorage. That bat continues coming through. And there's no mana left to do anything on the end of Kira's turn before going to World Waker's next one. And at 11 life, I mean, we still got a little bit of wiggle room, especially when the only thing on the field is a 1/1. But it looks like Keira is certainly searching for something to start the wheels turning once we go back to her turn.
no, that is a card and a half.
The Wandering Emperor? Eternal Wanderer?
Yes. Yes, both of those, but especially the Eternal. Eternal Wonder is so impactful when it lands. You can't be ignored, but also you kind of have to ignore it because of its attacking clause. Being able
Forced
to,
to ignore it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that is basically how it works. Man,
Ooh, all
I'm
right.
I'm so yelling at my screen to say, please just take 2 lands. You need the lands.
You know
Yeah.
what? It looks like World Waker agrees with you. Took 2 lands, now 3 memory deluges in the yard, and just trying to make sure
Ooh.
that there are enough things set up as possible. But is this going to maybe get a little bit dicey here?
I do like that fairy mastermind here. Oh, and a Rafine. This is nice, actually. Kira might be getting the upper hand right now.
It's quite a bit of attacking power. World Waker at 11, which isn't the worst here, but now that we're activating this anchorage as well, we're going to be doing some conniving for sure here.
Well, let's see what the Rafine targets first, because World Waker's thinking, what do I use Tidebinder on? Do I use it on the Channeler or the Mastermind, or do I use it on Rafine when Rafine uses the ability? And here, I think it looks like they're using it for the Rafine ability.
All right, Field of Ruin takes care of that anchorage. So it will not be able to attack. Rafine is going to get these connive triggers.
Let's see what the Rafine hits. Ooh, oh, it resolved. Okay.
Yeah, I think we only have 2 mana on World Waker's side up.
You're absolutely right. I thought there was an extra mana on the
I kind
side.
of thought there was another one hidden there too, but just barely not enough. But now this Eternal Wanderer is like, hello,
Hello.
hello.
It's good, but is it good enough? Because Worldbreaker's saying, I'm going to choose one thing to live here. It's going to be the mastermind. Okay. This is interesting. This is fair. So if I'm Keira now, I'm thinking I would like to get Rafine back. I would like to potentially get a Shieldred or an Aclazotz, a big dumb beater. I would definitely want to get another Deep Covering Bat to take away that Sunfall and to look at the rest of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm World Waker, I'm thinking, how am I going to survive the next 3 turns?
How do I live long enough to cast these memory deluges?
Yes, yes, that is actually true. World Waker's definitely thinking about, okay, I have 3 of these in my graveyard. Eventually, I'm going to cast one of them, but I need to get a situation where my opponent isn't doing anything important. So to get to that point, World Waker has to kill that Fairy Mastermind for sure, deal with these Restless Anchorages on the opponent's side, and figure out a way to leverage the cards in the hand for the purpose. So right now, I'm thinking Sunfall on Fairy Mastermind by itself, and then hold up a counterspell next turn. That's a play. There's a Tishana's Tidebinder that isn't really doing anything because it does not play well with board wipes. Oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Party time.
It's party time. A party a little bit too much for Keira though, because he gets to draw 2 cards instead of 1. I'd be tempted to activate it again. I'm not gonna lie.
I kind of would too.
But it's a risk because you're giving Worldbreaker free cards,
Yeah.
and Worldbreaker wants this to happen. Like it would be great to draw a Wonder Emperor right now.
I think, yeah, it's one of those places where it really depends, like, what's in Kira's hand. Like, did you find a thing that is what you want or not? You're probably so wishing that that's a negate, but
Maybe, but maybe the purpose is to make Worldbreaker tap out so that Keira can land something right now.
All right, we'll see.
Dennick's nice. Dennick's nice. Okay.
Dennick is something to attack with, which, yeah, I guess is nice.
If
I certainly would have liked probably any other creature in Kira's deck, but
for
ooh,
Rafine, eh? That's kind
piece
of
of
cool.
candy. Takanuma Abandoned Mire is going to allow Kira to get a creature back from the yard, and it's actually Lauren of the Third Path. We're interested in more party time, okay?
We love party time. It's party time. Unfortunately, Worldbreaker has 2 counter spells available. Fortunately for Keira, though, Worldbreaker doesn't really have much going on here. Board presence, in terms of board presence, Worldbreaker's not winning, like at all. They die in 2 hits.
But Worldbreaker has 3 memory deluges.
I think the play here might be even to just take the 4 and then flashback memory deluge at the end of Kira's turn.
That's what I would do, and hope to find something to, yeah.
This is also a fine choice. Playing the Tidebinder, expecting it to be counter or something, and then after it lands, to use the 3 steps ahead to make another copy of the Tidebinder, just so that there's 2 blockers. Get that card advantage. Party time? No. Okay.
Party time?
Blocks the Lord. This makes sense.
Blocks now party time?
You don't want Dennick to come back, because that's still 2 creatures you have to deal with. Now, the interesting thing is that if there's a Fairy Mastermind in Kira's hand, it's really good to cast right now because of party time on Lord. Let's see. Yeah.
We do party. Ooh.
It is, in fact, party time.
All right. Novice Inspector was the draw for World Waker. Just Dennick remains.
Yeah, drawing these cards like, yeah.
Oh, all right. We did have the Fairy Mastermind. So quick before that ends up being a problem, let's go ahead and counter that, says World Waker. So this second 3 steps ahead is going to hope to keep that Fairy Mastermind off the battlefield, but be refuted by a negate. So it's party time for everyone once again, as a lot of drawing cards is happening either from this Fairy Mastermind or this first copy of 3 steps ahead.
I don't know if it was necessary to cast that at that moment. I kind
of would have drawn more cards and not counted the Fairy Mastermind. I don't know. I would just be looking for a way to wipe the board again.
Yeah, I guess Worldwaker had 6 lands, so it was more important to do that. But I think not casting anything is actually better because that Denic is killing you in 3 turns.
But we have an
So
Otawara.
an Otawara has been drawn, yeah. So there's some options that Worldwaker has, but that Fairy Mastermind is actually more threatening as a flyer than it is as a card draw engine.
That's fair.
And Worldwaker wasn't able to deal with that, but they might have been able to if they hadn't cast 3 steps ahead. Unfortunately, this is the position we're in right now. I wish I knew how many cards Keira had in her hand. I don't see the entire, but that's okay. Jump block, okay. All right. The slow burn.
Indeed it is. Let's see if this memory deluge that we've been salivating over in our graveyard for the last lot of turns is going to find us what we need to stay in this game a little bit longer, staring down lethal on the other side of the board.
Okay, that's a
Okay.
good one. Tidebinder is also pretty good because it counters the Fairy Mastermind and takes flying away, which is good. Yeah, did you know Tidebinder takes away every ability that the creature has? Not just the activated or triggered ability, it takes away the entire text box. It's so interesting how that works.
I mean, starting to make sense why I saw it in like almost every deck with blue that I looked at today.
Oh no, it's just being cast normally though.
Oh.
Oh, I guess to keep mana as effective as possible. Keira only
Okay.
has so many No More Lives in her deck. So I think, yeah, she only has 3.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only so many things that Keira can counter. Oh my gosh, this is tense. It looks like Worldwaker is losing really hard right now, but there's actually a lot of options. This Dust Animus is probably going to get there.
Oh, another blocker too.
It's slammed down. There is no obvious counterspell for this, I don't think. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Our saving grace, once again, Dust Animus.
It's a sigh of relief when that enters the battlefield. Keira did not counter that spell. However, it's worrying that Keira probably does have a counterspell of some type. We just don't know what it is. From Worldwaker's position, attacking is the worst choice because they need those blockers. They need to deal with those attackers. And that Fairy Mastermind is getting so much value right now. Oh, that bounce is so good.
Yeah, that really does hurt, but it looks like we're going to try and make a token copy of it with this 3 steps ahead.
Oh, I don't know about this. This is kind of interesting, though. I like it. With an Otawara in hand, I feel like maybe this isn't necessary. It's going to come in as a 2/3. Wait, really? Oh, there's an extra land on the
Yeah,
left I
there's
can't
one
see.
more.
LOL. All right, that's my bad. I couldn't see it. Actually, no, it's not my
Okay.
bad. What are we
Yeah, it's
talking?
not your bad.
Yeah. I made no mistakes. I have made 0 mistakes in this entire game, in my entire life.
Oh, ooh. Wandering Emperor going to be the follow-up for Keira. And I imagine it's going to make another creature to add to the board, try to do some pumping. And certainly just try to keep this pressure on Worldwaker, who is at 3 life, holding on.
Keira
Poor
needs to
hero.
do Keira needs to do one of 2 things. Either kill a blocker, and that involves killing the Dust Animus anyway. So I guess every world that Keira wins this game right now is if the Dust Animus dies this turn. If the Dust Animus lives, I think Keira is going to start losing this game. But Keira needs to get the Dust Animus out of here. It needs to leave. It needs to pack its bag and go, and go to wherever it came from, which is Cleveland or something. I don't know. Some random U.S. state.
A dusty one.
These tokens are nice, but they're just shy of being enough. And this Animus isn't getting killed, which is telling me that Kira does not have an answer for it. And that lifelink is really, really strong as well.
Oh, I was
Threatening,
going to
essentially.
say, yeah, is it enough that. Oh, okay. Worldwaker choosing to Odawara, targeting one of the soldier tokens from the Wandering Emperor. And it's going to be
Tiebinder
to.
counters the Otawara because it's an activated ability. This is a very, very cool, clutch idea. Unfortunately, the second Dust Animus is now going to come down. And there's nothing Keira can do about it, I think, because if she had the removal for that first Animus, it would have been cast. Keep in mind, though, a second Wandering Emperor can enter and kill this attacking Dust Animus right now, which could be the difference between a win and a loss. Oh,
All right.
no.
Instead, it's going to be party time. We're going to draw some cards on both sides with this Fairy Mastermind activation. Get Memory Deluge number 4 into Worldwaker's hand. But more importantly, that damage is going to come through and gain a bunch of life off
Yes.
of that life linking token from the Dust Animus. And Worldwaker goes up to 7. A sigh of relief to be had.
Another Dust Animus and a Wandering
I'd
Emperor.
kind of just be like, yeah, you're coming with me.
Yeah, this Dust Animus will get cast, and Keira does not know that there is a third Dust Animus that's going to enter the battlefield, and this is the Sarah Angel of this game right now. Those Animuses, like I said earlier, Keira went up to 35 life, and Willwaker has 8 damage and flying in the air. All Willwaker has to do is attack 5 times, and
Oh,
that is sufficient to kill Keira. This bat is nice, but not as nice as it would have been maybe 4 turns ago,
yeah.
probably.
Does prompt that Wandering Emperor a little earlier than Worldwaker would have maybe ideally liked to use it, but is not going to be too upset about it. Dust Animus number 2, though, going to hang out under that deep cavern bat.
There it goes.
These other ones, they're also going to go, but they're going to go across the board.
Phew!
Yeah, now I feel like Worldwaker all of a sudden going from 3 to 7 is now like starting to crack the knuckles, getting
Yeah,
ready.
because now if one of those Dust Animuses are like bounced or killed or something, then Woodwicker has a little bit more wiggle room to work with. This Novice Inspector being a blocker is coming in actually kind of relevant right now. Um, I like it. Yeah, this Dennett's going to get exiled. Unfortunately, that attack was a
A
thing
little
that
rough.
happened. Yeah.
All right. More counters going on to the Dust Animus. Let's see if we can gain a little bit more life.
How much life would you like to gain, Becky?
9 sounds actually perfect.
9 sounds great. Hey, let's go back up to 18. How does that make you feel?
You'd never even guess that a few turns ago, Worldwaker was at 3 and like holding their breath. I would have been. Maybe they weren't, and maybe that's why they just continued cool as a cucumber hanging out. And I would have been like sitting there behind my computer. Don't die this turn. Don't die this turn. Don't die this turn.
Yeah, this has been a nail biter. Woolwicker has clawed back to being in a stabilizing position. These dust animi just getting in there. Keira is going to go all in on this Wandering Emperor. It's probably, it is enough, but it trades a lot of resources. Oh, just kidding.
Ooh.
Woolwicker's like, I'm not going to block this. I'm being silly today. I'm being a little silly. Silliness meter at 100.
Went up to 20. Just so much life. Like nothing to worry about.
Yeah, these lifelink creatures have been absolutely clutch for World Waker, meaning that they can no longer die to a random removal spell. They are now in the driver's seat, actually, with 2 memory delusions in the graveyard having flashback, a Wandering Emperor in the hand. Did you know that Wandering Emperor was a good card?
So good. Some people who are even playing it are excited to see it leave standard.
I
It's like
mean,
yeah, it's one of those moments. I feel the same way kind of about Shieldred. It's like if you can't beat them, join them. Like
yeah.
the only difference is I feel like with Shieldred, like the wording on it is all so boring, but at the same time, like clearly it's so good. And it's just like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll slide 4 of these into my deck somehow.
Just slide them into my deck.
Same way that we're putting all these wandering. It was really funny when I was looking at like overall metagame breakdowns, again, not just VML. It was really funny that there was a the statistic for the Wandering Emperor was 3.9 copies in 99% of decks.
Yeah, there is literally no reason. There are reasons why you would not want to play 4 of a legendary, and it's because, like, say you want to have them on the battlefield. But Wandering Emperor is just so versatile. You can minus kill a creature, -1 again, make it another creature. So it's a 2-for-1 because you have a creature that kills another thing. And then you play a second one, and you're like, that's cool. You play third. I've played a Wandering Emperor when I had one on the battlefield with 2 loyalty counters on it because I needed to kill something attacking me, and I did win that game. Like, Wandering just gets there. That was the power of Dust Animus, I think. Dust Animus was the thing that clutched that victory. Without that lifelink, without that blocker, without that attacker, without that flyer, all of those things come in, and you have a really good control like win condition. So I think after Wandering Emperor rotates, I'm really thinking about Dust Animus as like a primary win con because you can foretell it pretty easily. I say foretell. You can plot it really easily, and it just gets there later. And it's good because you play it on turn 5, or you top deck it and you play on turn 7. You're control. You have 1,000,000 lands, 2,000,000 in fact, maybe even 15. So that counts good.
All right. Azorius was not able to come out victorious earlier in our evening, but did come out victorious in this match. So, congratulations to World Waker and to Dust Animus. What the heck? Congratulations to Dust Animus for being a little bit of an all star in that match. I'm going to throw out a little bit of an all star nomination for Memory Deluge as well. That card's just kind of messed up. I don't know. Too
It's
versatile.
it's very strong, but I think it is actually it's strong
Strong,
because it's
but
this
right.
it is correctly strong, I think. There are some cards that are definitely a little too strong. Like if you ever like Nadu is a great example of this, like in recent times for modern. Nadu's not standard, so don't worry about it. But the point is, Member Deluge is strong, but it does require turns where you don't do anything.
Yeah.
And in this format, that can matter. So you kind of have to find wiggle room. And if you don't have that wiggle room, you might take some damage and you might lose the game even. So sometimes it isn't the right thing. It depends on the situation.
Very, very true. Well, let's continue on to our final match of the evening and see who will be the last person to join the group of 32 going further into our tournament here at the VML. Starting off with Ashley, who's going to be playing this Temur Analyst deck that you said was one of your favorites and is our most represented deck in the wild card around here.
Yeah, it's a good deck. So you have these sacrifice lands from New Capenna that were really overlooked because they're considered bad, right? Because they enter the
Uh,
battlefield, you have to get a land instantly. You do get a life, which is kind of cute, but you can only get a land of a certain land type. That's bad, right?
no, mana
Well,
fixing.
no, well, it's not. I mean, Terramorphic Expanse does it better, but
Fair
it's
enough.
not bad because did you know that if one of those Capenna lands enters tapped, you still get to sacrifice it and fetch another land. So Aftermath Analyst returns all your lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, but it doesn't matter because they still sacrifice and you still get value. Um, this deck has 30 lands in it, 30. Half of the deck is
What a
lands.
good number.
I
You said you like 27 and I was like, I don't know. Sometimes I like more.
Yeah,
I I kind of like it.
it's just a lot of recursion. It's a lot of ramp. You have ill-timed explosion for a board wipe if you have to. Fires of Victory is kind of nice. World Soul's Rage is technically the win condition. You get Virtue of Strength down, triple your mana. World Soul's Rage gets you there. There's even a single Pillage the Bog. A single Pillage the Bog as like a tutor. Very
What a
cool.
fun
Very, very
card name. Pillage the Bog.
Yeah, it's the closest thing we have to demonic tutor right now. It is not anywhere close to the card, but if you have like 10 lands out, it might as well be. And it's good enough that it gets there.
All right. Well, let's take a peek at what Ashley is going to be playing against and see what is taking on the quote unquote strongest deck of the format. Hidetsugu and Kairi combo. You were talking to me a little bit about this deck before even coming into today. Run it through for the people at home.
Okay, so the Hidetsugu and Kairi combo deck is a little niche, but it is a strategy that is to be reckoned with. It is basically kind of like Dredge. So you play Ledger Shredder, you play Otherworldly Gaze, and you play those cards alongside others because you mill cards, right? So you're milling cards
Mhm.
from your deck. You're getting this Hidetsugu and Kairi into your graveyard. Check. Then you play push pull. You put up to two creature cards from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the end. Okay. So you return Hidetsugu and Kairi to the battlefield. Then you draw three cards, put two cards on the top. Tarian's Journal then sacrifices Hidetsugu and Kairi, triggering its death trigger. When it dies, you exile the top card of your library. The opponent loses life equal to its mana value, and if it's an instant or sorcery card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Well, here's the fun part about this. If you were to exile push pull, you may then cast pull, return Hidetsugu and Kairi again, then it's sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step. So on the end step, it dies, and you get another trigger, and you reveal the top card and you cast it for free. Oh no, explosive singularity. Your opponent takes 10 damage
Oh my
from the
goodness.
cost, and then 10 damage from the actual spell, which is just tons of damage. It's very explosive, but it's a lot of moving pieces. So I'm really, really excited to see it work.
Okay, well, I'm excited to see it work as well. Before we go down into this match, would you consider this a control deck? Like, do you
No,
think combo decks are control decks? No?
not in the slightest. This is not a
Okay.
control deck. This is a deck. The control pieces like Binding Negotiation or Shieldred's Edict are merely there to ensure that you don't die to aggro decks, right? So notice that Binding Negotiation is a good way to deal with plotted cards. It's a good way to just look at the hand and just it's a catch-all
Mhm.
answer. Long Goodbye cannot be countered, so it deals with Raffine really well. It deals with Ward really well. It deals with all those sorts of things. Shieldred's Edict is able to kill Planeswalkers for 2 mana. It also gets around hexproof, and it gets not ward. It gets around ward really
Mhm.
nicely. All of these spells are just really they're really nice things. They're quick and dirty. You kill one or two important pieces of their combo. Yeah, it's good. Even Archfiend of the Dross has like a role, right? If your opponent's playing
Mhm.
tokens and you wipe the board with Deadly Cover Up, Archfiend of the Dross hits them for like 6 times 2, so like 12 damage.
All
Conspiracy. Like,
right.
it's basically a really fun reanimator deck. I can't wait to see it in action.
All right, well, let's start to see it in action. Our final match of the evening. Do you want to cast your bets?
No, I'm good. I just want. I'm gonna bet on the deck that's a little more meta, the Temur Analyst. But I'm secretly rooting for. I'm always rooting for the underdog. I always want to
I
see
get you.
the
I'm in
funny.
the same boat.
I want to
I
see the funny combo deck work.
Yeah, I want to see it do the thing.
Yeah, this is a really really nice hand for Ashley. Has a Nissa, has 3 lands. Wolfennar's looking at her hand and going, don't have a way to get to discard these big spells, but I could cast Hidetsugu and Kairi on turn 5. Uh, Unfortunately, there's no removal in Wolf's hand right now. No way to deal with those Nissas or Aftermath Analysts.
All right. Well, maybe they will find their way into her hand. And in the meantime, start off with some tap lands. Unfortunately, it was, I believe, an explosive singularity as the draw. So further from what we're hoping for. And Ashley is going to start things off with a virtue of strength and just keep kind of setting these lands up little by little.
This Ledger Shredder is really nice, actually,
Nice.
as long as
Yeah.
it doesn't get killed. Um, Ashley's does not have red, so this Fires of Victory is not going to kill this Ledger Shredder. Unfortunately, I don't see how Wolf is going to be able to cast 2 spells in a turn, and Ashley is not planning on doing this either. At least not right now.
Mhm.
So this Ledger Shredder is a little bit sad. Um, Using this hideout is also kind of an interesting choice because if Ashley doesn't draw land next turn, these Nissas are going to be very sad at what they do.
Absolutely. Spelunking came down, did allow for a little bit of ramp, but as you mentioned, that could end up kind of turning against Ashley as no land was drawn. The Nissa's, as you mentioned, looking a little bit sad now.
Yeah, if there was a land here, it could have been Broker's Hideout, get the mana, sack it, get another mana, potentially even get an Aftermath Analyst, which is what Ashley really needs right now as an Aftermath Analyst.
All right, Tarian's Journal is going to sacrifice that Ledger Shredder.
There that goes. Arcane Proxy can enter the battlefield, but there's nothing. Oh, okay. Well, you can just draw it. Fine. it just works. It just works.
Sometimes you never didn't have it. Aftermath Analyst coming in, and let's mill some cards. Mill that Memory Deluge. How
Wolfennar
nice.
might. Now, here's the interesting thing. Wolfennar is one land away from winning the game.
Oh, okay. I'm watching.
All she
Eyes
has to
emoji.
do, all she has to do is draw an untapped land. That's all she has
Oh,
to do.
okay.
If she can draw an untapped land, then the game is over. Uh, this Hidetsugu and Kairi is going to put the explosive singularity on the top of the library. Then it will die to Tarian's journal, reveal the singularity. That's 10 damage. Then the singularity deals 10 damage. Ashley's at exactly 20 life, despite the fact that she's gained some life. Um, so Wolf has done a really interestingly good job at keeping that life total at bay. Actually, I realize
Hmm.
if the Aftermath Analyst is sacrificed, all the stack lands enter the battlefield again. So
So that would be some life gained, yeah.
yeah, it would be some life gains. This proxy is coming down.
Oh,
Okay, this is
another, yeah,
interesting.
Hidetsugu and Kairi was drawn, not a land.
Yeah, there's the
Oh,
land.
there's a
Okay,
land.
okay, that's clutch. That's clutch.
Just gotta
I'm
wait.
Well, here's the interesting problem though, is that now these lands are entering. They're going to be getting land. So Ashley's going to be able to either do Virtue Strength or be able to do World Souls Rage. But
Hmm.
she has no way to deal with this Tarian's Journal. Um, this is interesting. Shigeki is so strong here too. So if I'm Ashley, knowing in this position, knowing what Wolf is playing, if Ashley's correctly identified how Wolf wins, she always holds up fire as a victory here because you want to
Hmm.
kill the Hidetsugu and Kairi in response to its brainstorm trigger. Because if you let Wolf put the explosive singularity on top of her deck, uh,
Hmm.
that's really bad. Ooh, okay. Virtue Strength has been cast. This may be it then.
All right.
Deadly Cover Up
Walls down for Ashley. Hidetsugu and Kairi coming down.
enters the battlefield, draws 3 cards. Singularity and Deadly Cover Up on the there. The Deadly Cover Up has been placed on top of the library, so now Wolf is thinking about exiling 4 of something from Ashley's deck. Looks like. Oh, nope, Singularity is on the top now.
All right, yeah, it looks like that singularity was the call, sacrificing the Hidetsugu and Kairi. And as you mentioned, a whole lot of damage coming through, leaving Ashley at 2.
Yeah, but it's not enough because
Mhm.
all the basic lands on Ashley's battlefield are tripled. And there are 8 lands there. That's 24 mana, which means that this rage is just going to kill. 20 damage.
Big ol' World Soul Rage. Wow.
Those, those,
Explosive turns.
yeah, absolutely. I think, man, I don't know, because that virtue of strength was really what was needed to win the game there.
Mhm.
And she recognized that she had to win the game like that turn, or else that's it. There's just nothing she can do. But it was really unfortunate that Wolf was not able to get that like third land, the fourth land.
Yeah, if it had happened to turn earlier.
Yeah, those really needed to be like there.
All right. Drest is coming into the Temur deck. But hey, when you've got the ability to do it, put the dresses in your sideboard. Go a little crazy.
There go in the negates. This makes sense. Long goodbyes go away. That's interesting. Flesh Gorger comes in. Stonebrain, I think, is a great choice, actually. Getting rid of like all of the Nissas or all of the Aftermath Analysts before they can be cast, that would be really, really strong. Tidebinder is also kind of nice. It doesn't counter Nissa's ability because that's a mana ability, I think. But it does counter the Aftermath Analyst ability, which is probably really clutch. This is a good hand. We have 4
I was gonna
lands.
say, yeah, this is a great hand.
This is actually a so-so hand for Ashley. She doesn't have action for 3 turns. She doesn't even have a sack land. So this Virtue Strength is going to just kind of sit in there. This is a much better hand.
Ooh.
This is much better.
With the duress. Wow.
Yes.
I see, this is like the most iconic mid-range deck, in my opinion. The one that just like sideboards into duress and disdainful stroke or negate. Like, there's nothing more like chef's kiss perfection to me than a mid-range deck that just has those sitting in the sideboard. Wait.
Exactly. I think here getting rid of the disdainful stroke is correct because there's no blue lands here. Unfortunately, there's only green, black, white, and red. Ashley's looking at it and thinking about the disdainful stroke, but you do need the stroke to counter the Hidetsugu. So maybe just keep it. Get rid of Shigeki. It's a late game card. Not necessary right now. There's the blue. Okay,
All
well.
right. Easier said. Well, I was going to say easier said than done, but we drew it, so clearly not.
It's just that easy. It is
Never didn't have it. That's the phrase I was looking for.
Never didn't have it. So at this point, the duress is going to try to come down turn 2. However, I'm not really sure what the duress is trying to hit. Like, maybe you're trying to hit
hit the
Tarian's
tome.
Journal.
Yeah, journal.
Probably, but right now, Wolf doesn't have a tome, so that's kind of not an issue. Oh, this analyst is so nice.
Yeah, holding off and not using the impulse until after this duress is finished. Because I can't imagine that you would ever take the impulse. Maybe you would.
If the impulse is taken, then she is allowing Wolf to have this reanimate spell, which is potentially going to win her the game. She is also allowing her to have the Shieldred's Edict, which is going to prevent Ashley from being able to play the Aftermath Analyst. So it's probably just better to deal with what you know versus what you don't know at this point. I think the choice makes a lot of sense. Honestly, all 3 of those cards I think are completely valid choices. It's hard to
for different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. It all depends on what Ashley's trying to do. If she took the edict, it means that she's trying to push the Aftermath Analyst through. If she took the impulse, it's because she wants to play around stuff. And if she takes the push pull, it means she's playing for the long game. She wants to try to win the game that way. This forest is real nice, by the way, because this analyst can sacrifice on turn. Well, supposedly it would sacrifice, but unfortunately, that Shieldred's Edict makes that kind of impossible. Ashley's sitting here like, should have taken that edict, maybe. That is not happening. However, there's an argument to be made that you can play the analyst and then return it with Virtue of Strength next turn and just try to jam it through that way, but that also did not happen. Now it's time to Dream Twist.
Let's start surveilling. Get some things in the yard.
This is really fantastic for that push pull that's happening. If that push pull resolves, it's going to be really good. Oh, and there's a negotiation. And there's a Hidetsugu and Kairi on the top of the library.
Yep.
This is going to resolve? Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Ooh, disdainful stroke goes too.
Yeah.
Doppelgang. We're a little far away from that. That's a rough one to draw.
I don't know, Beky. You could have just put down like 10 more lands and it'll be good.
You're right. Easy peasy.
Yeah, just
I guess it did end up looking that easy last game, so.
I love that it's copy X permanence X times. That's so wacky. It's such a wacky card.
I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen sooner.
All right, so this Hidetsugu Kairi comes down. It's too good to pass up. Top 3 cards, draw 3 cards. There's another Hidetsugu and Kairi. That's so good. So you put the 2 cards on the top. Then what you do is you order it so that you draw the island first. Next turn, You cast the second Hidetsugu and Kairi, which dies from the legendary. Oh no, it wasn't ordered that way. Okay, never mind. I'm trying to sequence this out.
I was letting you cook. I was like, okay, yeah, and
Well, if the Hidetsugu and Kairi dies to the legend rule, the dice trigger goes. You can wait. Resolves on the stack. Yeah, that's state-based actions. So then you reveal the top card of your library. You can then reanimate this Hidetsugu and Kairi that just died, and then that comes back, and then you legend rule the other Hidetsugu Kairi, and then that would go through, and you just have so much value there. Um, yeah, Wolf is like, I learned from last game. I'm going to hit for 5 first before doing anything else. So down to 20. Oh, passing the turn. That's interesting.
Okay. Maybe just like again is trying to be as safe as possible this game compared to what happened last game.
That's true. This Nissa's very nice here, actually. So if Ashley knows that Wolf has the Shield Edict. So if Ashley's thinking, do I play Nissa now and try to play Broker's Hideout? Because Nissa will not live, but the Aftermath Analyst will live because it can be sacrificed.
Oh, nope. Just going to go ahead with that Analyst.
And Wolf has to cast the Edict before, just in case there's a land, and there's an extra land there now. That's a really unfortunate situation because getting the extra land could be the difference between a win and a loss, depending on how much mana Ashley's going to have after the Virtue lands next turn.
All right, gets that Shieldred's Edict out and activates that Analyst.
That's 11 lands. I'm trying to think. If I'm Wolf, what am I doing in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Attack with Hidetsugu Kairi 100% first before doing anything else. Second step, play that land. Actually, I don't know what's in Wolf's graveyard. Maybe Wolf is trying to get the push-pull situation going on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Wolf is just cooking and I'm just misunderstanding. But I think maybe there's something in the graveyard that can be push-pull. No, there isn't. All the collective mana value of the stuff is just not that good. So attack with Hidetsugu Kairi, take the 20. Cast the second one. Okay. This happens through. Legend rules the first one away. Okay, the tapped one. It doesn't matter, honestly. Trigger. So draw 3 and then put 2 on the top. Okay. Order it in such a way that the reanimate spell's on the top. So you exile the reanimate spell, that's 8 damage.
Okay.
Push pull again.
Do it again.
Yeah, you do that. You draw 3 cards. Draw 3 cards. Otherworldly Gaze and a Deadly Cover-Up. The Deadly Cover-Up can be used to exile 4 copies of something that Ashley has. But then it also kills the Hidetsugu Kairi. I don't know. But there's another Hidetsugu Kairi on the top of the library. And there's a hostile in the hand. So it can be sacrificed instantly. That's extremely hilarious.
All right, that cover-up does go. Otherworldly Gaze as well.
So if I'm Wolf in this situation, if there's any like virtue strengths in the graveyard, I would 100% take those. If there's any copies of, oh no, it wasn't, wait, oh, the Deadly Cover-Up was not collected evidenced. So Wolf didn't exile anything. Wolf is just hoping that she doesn't lose the game this turn.
Well, Wolf didn't have a way to because collect evidence 6, yeah?
It was 6, but oh, maybe. I don't know. So this is interesting now because Ashley has 12 mana. 12 is enough. It is a lot. However, it's not enough to be able to do more than just set up for next turn. It is not enough to win the game. This doppelgang can copy so many permanents. Wait, hold on. The copies come in untapped, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So if the doppelgang copies the Virtue of Strength 3 times, and then copies 3 lands 3 times, Every basic land taps for. Hold on, I need to do the math here because it's to the power of 3, right? So 1 times
We all know this little math
two,
gif. That's
3,
what's going
4.
across the screen right now.
Okay, wait. I think the doppelgang would have been really good there. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. But um, so doppelgang copying virtue strength 3 times as well as 3 lands 3 times. 4 copies of virtue strength on the battlefield means that every land that
Can
Ashley has
you?
taps for 81 mana. And Ashley is going to have 3 untapped lands, which amounts to 243 mana, plus these Nissa Resurgent triggers.
Oh, okay. We're
So
just doing that now anyway.
so we have 249 mana currently at our disposal. That's pretty good. So Memory
Seems good
Deluge
to
is
me.
gonna
Yeah.
just 249. Unfortunately, it's not 250. Not that nice round number. Very sad. Very sad. Um, so what's gonna happen now is this Memory Deluge is gonna come in, and tapping a land is going to break the server.
Yeah, I would guess so. Oh, instead we're gonna just keep trying to break the server as much as possible and cast another Virtue of Strength.
Yeah, so now, so every basic land now taps for 243 mana, which is pretty funny. And she's like, I need to go higher. Here
It's
we go.
I get it. I mean, I've already admitted to being a big ramp fan, and this is just like this is ramp to the max. This is what everyone who has ever played green has wanted to do ever. Also, nice.
Am I thinking of the right? I just need to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly.
Okay.
3 times that much. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think the server just literally cannot handle how much mana is currently being like made right now because
As the game isn't broken, so we're fine.
it says 69, but Colossal Sky Turtle is definitely the play because all you have to do is return Shigeki or whatever, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whatever is in Ashley's. Oh, you know what's in Ashley's graveyard?
Hmm.
Doppelgang.
True.
You can just doppelgang more lands. It's forever. Just infinity times.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
Or we
whoa.
can just look for the World Souls Rage.
You see how much mana that is? That's 239 mana. Ashley's going, let's hit you for 65. Aw, not
Just to be
even.
safe.
Yeah, just to be safe. You know, Wolf could have a card that randomly gains her 40 life or 60 life, sorry. So, you know, you just gotta play it safe, right? Like you gotta make sure that you take her down to negative 45. Just in that
I
scenario.
do think there was a moment where you were like, "Oh, wait, this isn't what I." You were still like, "Oh, this isn't what I thought she was going to need to do this turn," and it still ended up equating to a bajillion mana.
That's why Doppelgang's in the deck, because it's just that explosive. If you're able to get that triple mana down and you get all the lands, you get all the mana, like I have no words, so I'm just doing interpretive dance. Okay, like
It's
it,
beautiful. Fantastic. I
it,
mean, I kind of love it. We got to see some big explosive things to end our night off. Like, we got to see the Hidetsugu and Kairi kind of do a little bit of its thing in the two different ways. And then we also got to see, billions and billions of mana. That didn't break the game. Good job, Magic Arena. Not Magic Online, excuse me. Magic
200,
Online probably would have broken.
250 blue mana. It's absolutely hilarious.
So much mana.
Hi, Phoebe.
Absolutely. Hello, Phoebe. Yeah. Hey, it's a great. I love it. I play too much of it. Every time it crashes, I'm like I feel like it's the worst time imaginable, so it like gets expounded in my brain way more than it should. But it's probably because I'm already like putting it through the ringer every single time as well. But I like I'm flaming a little bit, but I also love Magic Online. So, and I think it's like one of the purest forms of Magic in my mind. So,
Yeah, that match was so fun to watch. It's just
it
ridiculous
was
combo decks against each other. This is magic. We have aggro decks where we're like, oh, I'm gonna
we
attack
saw
you
a little bit of
20 damage.
everything for everything today.
Yeah, it's such a good variety. I absolutely adore it.
And it's great to see our competitors go in this strong. Congratulations to those who made it into the top 32 today. I mean, you got a few more weeks left, and then it will be on the horizon. See who we're sending into the VML championships, see who we're sending to the RCs. I mean, we're getting down into the nitty gritty here. And I'm excited to just continue to see what people bring. Are we going to see people continue to bring like best decks, both like these burn decks or the teamer deck? Or do we get to continue to see some of these really cool decks like this Hidetsugu and Kairi combo deck make their way into the format and kind of take people a little bit by surprise? Because like I was surprised that even by turn 5 it was doing 20 damage. There was like against most other decks that would have done it.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm impressed by all of the things that we saw today. We got to see a great variety. When we talked earlier in the week, you were like, Azorius control, put in Azorius control. And I was like, I'm going to be casting 4 Azorius control games. It's fine. It's fine. And then to come into this night and have seen like this variety is actually kind of great and refreshing. So I'm happy with how this turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. I just yeah, there's so much strategy happening here, and it's awesome seeing these cards interact with each other in these ways. I said it when we started the stream, right? Like this is really a format of cards that interact with other cards and just maximizing the potential of everything that you have in your deck. Every card does something. Uh,
Yeah, the time of the vanilla creature is gone. They don't exist anymore.
yep. Yes.
All right. And with that, Kuro and I are going to be heading off for the evening. Any final words you would like to leave the people with?
Uh, nonchalant.
I will leave you with big loves. Thanks for joining us tonight, especially if you also spent all day potentially watching some Pro Tour coverage. For those of you who are in Amsterdam, have a great time. For those of you who are at home, also have a great weekend. We will be back here next week to walk you through the VML Top 32, and we hope to see you there.